It's trick or treat season, and for Kickstarter, that means you get the treat of a new game and the trick of realizing you just spent a lot of money. This is our Kickstarter Pickstarters for the week of October 7th, 2019.
Our first game this week is a big one that we've talked about before on our channel. It's Oathsworn Into the Deepwood from Shadowborn Games. A gigantic campaign-based combat and narrative game takes place in this grimdark fantasy world in which the world has pretty much fallen apart. Things are not so good out there, and you play as a group that has vowed to go out there and try to take on the monsters of the world. Maybe you're doing it for money, maybe you're actually a good person and you're doing it for honor, for glory, whatever it may be. And the way the game works is there are two sections of it. The first one is reading from a book or using an app that tells you a story, and you'll be making choices, following along a map, perhaps doing some light puzzle solving. Then it goes into a combat encounter where you move onto a board with your minis, and there are different rules for different characters that have their own abilities. You'll be rolling dice or perhaps flipping cards, your choice, in order to carry out attacks with different weapons and armor. And a big thing about this campaign is that a lot of it is being kept hidden if you want it to be. It's a little bit behind closed doors because a lot of this stuff is behind boxes, as it would be in a legacy game, although I don't think there's any legacy elements in this in terms of, ripping up cards or anything. It's more campaign driven, but there are some secrets and some surprises that you can find within. Like I said, we had done a video on this a little while ago, and we will, coming up in the next few weeks, have an interview with the designer of the game, so look forward to that. But I felt that it was important that we bring it up here because I feel that this is a huge game. From what we've seen from the funding, it's taking off.
Oh yeah, it's doing really well, which I'm really happy about. Another cool thing that when you look at this is they actually have 2 pledge levels, so if you don't have the money and don't want to get all the minis, they do have one where it's just standees, which is, I think, once again, it's one of those things I really like because it helps some people who want to still play the game, but maybe whether they don't want to spend the money or just don't want to have a bunch of gray minis lying around.
Yeah, which is not something you see too often with a big minis game. Usually they're like, look, you're all in or you're all out. In this one, you can decide how you want to do it. There's some cool add-ons. There's even some mystery boxes too in there. This is also one of the rare Kickstarter games that we've actually played before we pick it. Usually we're in your boat and we're just talking about things that we think look cool. This one we can confirm is cool. So it is $99 for that standee version, and if you want to go all in with a ton of minis that are huge and detailed, that's $179. So see what you think. It's Oathsworn.
We're not done with minis just yet. We have Time of Legends Joan of Arc 1.5. This is sort of a new release for the Joan of Arc game. We actually talked a little bit about it last Pickstarter because Lucky Duck had their game, which is in the same universe, titled Destiny, so I thought it was appropriate that we should mention this one since it's connected to that and it's coming back. If you don't know this game, it's pretty much a heavy miniatures game that actually has different modes that sort of set in the era of Joan of Arc, and one of the modes is playing during the 100 Years battle, very more historic, but they also have a different mode where you can play with like demons and angels and dragons. There's also a scenario modes where they just have specific scenarios and fan-generated scenarios. So a lot of cool stuff there. There are, I think, old Kickstarter stuff as well as new stuff. The first pledge level, I think, for actually something is $80 for like an expansion. I think it's $192. I'll have to double check again for the base. But the big thing, there's a lot for this they've made. The full pledge, if you were to go all in, and shipping to the US, which if I recall is the cheapest shipping, is about $10 or $15 short of $1,000. So it's quite a bit. The modes I mentioned is how you probably should focus on this, because that's if you were to go everything. But I think if you only went for the historical stuff, you'd probably cut that in half as well. You really should, if you want to go for this game early on and you don't have a lot of money, I definitely suggest I'm just going to focus on like in my case, I'd focus on the mythical stuff because I think that's cool. And they actually have that. They have here are some bundles if you just want the legendary battles or just the mythical, which is nice considering, $1,000 is a lot.
It's a lot. It's a little bit much.
Yeah, they have a whole lot of minis though, and it's really cool to have the fan generated. So even though they have a lot, at least they're being like, look, here's the bundles that you might want to look at. Even one of the pledge levels is, they call it the a la carte $6. So that could be all right, I'm just going to pick what I want, which I think you do need for this kind of thing.
Right, yeah. So it's nice when you can just go through the add-ons and take what you need. You don't have to go all in if you don't need to. Now that we have the giant narrative-driven mini games out of the way, we'll get to some smaller fare. Here's one called Calico from Flat Out Games. It's a tile placement game that revolves around quilting and cats. So on your turn, each player has their own individual board, and you're placing little patches onto your quilt, and they have different colors and different patterns, and you can put them anywhere that you want. If you get 3 colors that are the same together, you get to put a button there, and that's worth points at the end of the game. You also have some individual goals on your board that you might want to get certain patterns or colors surrounding different tiles. And then there are the cats. The cats come out, and each one of those has their own specified desired patterns. So they might want a stripe next to 2 polka dots or something like that. And if you meet that condition, then you get a little cat token, and the cat comes over and sits on your quilt. And the cats are worth different numbers of points also at the end of the game. So it's very, very simple, very straightforward. You put down a tile, you take a new one, etc., and you just keep going until eventually you score things up. There's even a solo mode, and there's also a family mode if you want to play with even younger kids to make it even easier. Just a very, I mean, you can see that artwork. It's got a really pleasing aesthetic style, nice, cute cats and quilting. Kind of, at first glance, you might think it's compared to something like Patchwork, which a little bit I think there is. One of the review quotes mentioned Azul as well. I think maybe is a little bit more in that wheelhouse, but that kind of a light family-style game, which I think is cool.
I mean, it looks adorable, but I think the real winner is if you can get your actual cat to sit in the game box.
Yeah, or on the quilt itself. I mean, this could carry over in all kinds of mediums. It goes for $29. It's called Calico.
Labyrinthos from Dogmite Games takes place in the famous labyrinth with the Minotaur. You are all lucky participants who are put into the maze as a sacrifice, but there is legend that there are 4 powerful keys that should you collect them all, you will be able to escape. This game is all about navigating a ever-changing labyrinth, getting those keys, and trying to make the way out. One of the things I thought that was really cool about this is the way the game works your actions is you sort of get 7 action tokens, but they come in either hand or feet. And the actions you can take requires different mixtures, like moving requires a foot because you walk. Healing requires a hand because you usually need a hand to bandage yourself. Things like that. And those keys come with stronger actions, but once you get them, you have to cover up one of your other basic actions. So it's a decision of what to give up in order to get that more powerful benefit. And of course, there's the Minotaur. At the end of the turn, you'll roll a die to move the Minotaur around, and you could hurt people. And the way you get wounds is actually covering up your actions as well. And that's why you want that heal action to maybe be able to walk again because you covered up the move action. That, I think, is where the real interest comes in. I think that looks really cool. And seeing in the comment section, it sounds like they're going to maybe add like Medusa or some other Greek monsters too, which sounded cool. So I thought we've seen Greek in mythology, and I don't have too much of a problem with that, but I think that twist with the choosing what kind of actions you take, whether you take hand or foot, as well as choosing what actions to either wound or upgrade with the keys, I think is also a cool mechanic.
Yeah, it's always appreciated for me when a game does something like that with the players, where your actions aren't just so straightforward, you just do them. You have to do some strategic thinking in how you carry them out. I think that's cool. And obviously, like I said, Labyrinth just seems like a cool, obvious, but still cool setting for a board game. It applies itself well, I think.
Mazes are cool. This game is for $40, and you can check it out now.
The Search for Planet X from Foxtrot Games is a competitive logical deduction game in which players are trying to discover the location of Planet X before anyone else can. So you have a round board that represents your solar system, and you are searching different areas for different objects to try to figure out where Planet X might be. The game uses an app, and each player also has their own player board and player sheet so everything is hidden, and you're searching things with the app as you're taking notes on your piece of paper. So it's all handled there so that nothing gets messed up. There are no mistakes made. The app will handle all the logic and make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. It definitely reminded me in the setup of the game Cryptid, which is also about players trying to search for locations and find a specific tile or piece that they want. The difference in this one is that hidden information element, where when you take an action, you will announce that you're searching a sector for an asteroid field maybe, or just that you're searching a sector, but you won't tell anyone what you found. There will be some phases perhaps later on that may reveal those things so they'll become public knowledge. But in general, it's more hidden and more secretive, so it's a little bit of a twist to it. And it's things like maybe you know that the planet X will never be next to a dwarf planet, I think it was. So if you find a dwarf planet, you know it's not in either of the adjacent sectors. So you're trying to figure out that logic, that kind of puzzly thing that I tend to enjoy sometimes in games. Plus the app integration sounded cool, sounded well done.
It isn't these kind of games where you have to solve something. The app is very helpful, I think, because then you don't have one player who has to like look and like, all right, I know where it is, so I'm just gonna watch you guys play.
Right. It does require a phone though, hopefully a phone or a tablet or maybe a laptop. I'm not sure if they'll have a web version. Again, it's Search for Planet X. It goes for $34.
And when you're finished trying to search for Planet X, maybe you can join Floodgate Games into colonizing outer space. In Cosmic Colonies, you are all colonizing your own little asteroid. The way the game works is it's a drafting game with a little bit of a twist on the regular drafting mechanic. The cards have initiative values, which means you have to go first in taking resources or building. They also have a day and night phase, because each round will consist of a day and night. So the first card you draft will use the day ability, second one, the night ability. After you've drafted your 2 cards, you will actually not pass the cards you didn't pick, but you will pass the cards you did pick. So that becomes a bit more interesting on how not just picking what you want to do, but maybe like you know your opponent would want this ability, so you want to save it right now for this round until he does something else. There's also secret goals, of course, how to build, and your asteroid has different mats, and you get rewards for covering up spaces. So if you're completely cover up all the ice spaces, for example, you get points. So I thought this was this fun Tetrisy, a whole new twist on drafting I really enjoyed that had a bit more of a pick, not just with like the passing of the card, but also like the day and night abilities and then the initiative track. It all just sounded like taking a mechanic great mechanic, but adding a lot of cool new stuff to it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of drafting games. I think it's a really fun mechanic, and I'm also a big fan of cards that have like the different uses depending on how you use them. So yeah, that sounds really cool to me, and it sounds like it's also generally these drafting games also tend to be a find. They could be taxing and thinking about stuff, but usually the rule sets are a little simpler. They're not as complicated, maybe.
There are only 4 cards too, by the way, per hand, which helps because sometimes drafting you start with like 7 or something. This is for $39, and it is Cosmic Colonies. A lot of cool games, whether on the lighter side or the whole mini side. Obviously, I think, because we already got to play it, Oathsworn is definitely up there for us, and obviously for a lot of people too. I think as of this recording, it's already made quite past its stretch goals.
Yeah, so that's very exciting. There's a lot of cool stuff there. So clearly we're in an age where we talked about in our recent viewer comments episode that, you know, the narrative mini-heavy campaign game, people are all in for it still. You know, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So that's cool. But then again, if you don't have that much money, you can just get a little cat game. It's up to you.
All the other ones are not bad at all. I think they're all in the perfect price range for that middle game. I mean, the cat game was on like 29, was it again?
29, 39, something like that, yeah.
And the other ones are much closer to around the $40, which I think is like the very nice. There's something about the number 4 with board games that works out very well.
Yeah, it's not quite 50, you know, it's a solid mid-weight number. Let us know in the comments, what are you backing? Are you going all in for those big minis games or something smaller or something else we didn't mention on today's show? Talk to us in the comments section down below. Till next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This is Roll for Crit, Kickstarter, Pickstarter.
Catch the latest from Roll for Crit by liking and subscribing and supporting us on Patreon.
You're not a hidden traitor, are you? Come on, like us.